Hey everyone, my name is Dr. Dolores Tarver. I'm a licensed psychologist here in Georgia, and it is time for TT Time with Dr. Tarver. It is a wellness-based podcast. It is not intended to be a substitute for a relationship with a licensed mental health provider. Can you believe it? It's already the last week of January. A reel I posted this week was checking in with people like, where we at with those goals? What's it looking like? And so I thought it fitting that I end this last podcast for this month talking about social media because I feel like it's just everywhere you look, everywhere you turn. And I think sometimes it is one of the major factors that interferes with us being able to be well and reach our goals. And so I wanted to take some time and talk about when it might be appropriate for you to take a social media fast, particularly if you're working towards something and you're recognizing that you're spending a lot of time on social media and you're not being as productive as you could potentially be. But I'm getting ahead of myself, so let's get into it. So, people often ask me about social media. So, if that was one of the things that I would say, probably weekly, people are talking to me about their social media patterns and how social media affects them. I think oftentimes people are utilizing social media to be able to get news information. So you may have stations that you're listening to that you are utilizing an app. It might be ABC News, it could be CNN, it could be headline news, any number of things. You might be a person who gathers information from a lot of different places. And so you're utilizing social media to be able to gather that information in various groups. So some of them might be direct news outlets, some of them might be people that you follow, news media people, or people who you trust with regard to their voice that they're going to bring you information. You may be looking at videos that are addressing things. You might be sharing videos and talking to your friends in groups about them. But there are a lot of different ways that we're often getting information in multiple spaces, however, often either in our phones or on a computer. And so it still ends up counting as that social media time. And I've shared before that sometimes, particularly when we're watching a lot of news information, that it feeds anxiety. If you notice, when you're watching the news is on a loop. So every 20, 25 minutes, they're going to be running the same kind of information over and over again. There'll be some commercials in there and then they're back at it. And so what ends up happening is there is sometimes this fear of missing out. If I don't keep watching, I'm going to miss something important. It is that things feel out of control, and so being able to hear it and be aware of what's happening will somehow be able to give us more control to help us be able to navigate what might happen so we can prepare for the worst case scenario. I know that's why a lot of you ran off and got you some water and some bread and some other things from the store here in Georgia because there was a potential chance that we might get some winter weather, and absolutely sending prayers to those states who were affected by the winter weather, and some of you are still without power. I think too, we're constantly looking for stories of encouragement, things that are going to motivate us. So you may be online looking to hear a good word. Perhaps you're trying to get the information to break the code about how to find that partner you're looking for, how to be able to be successful in this business, how to be able to be a social media influencer and be able to get paid for it, how to take your brand a step further, how to get ideas about some things that you want to be able to do to make your life easier. There may be some things around the house. You're looking at ads, you're checking out product information and being able to compare, to buy a car, to be able to buy a Ninja, a juice machine, something that you need maybe in the kitchen or in other areas of your life. So we're also looking on social media to be able to gain information that helps us to be able to make decisions about things. And so I think in those ways we feel like there's productivity in being on social media because instead of me going out and making impulsive purchase or buying something that I really didn't want, settling if you will, I'm able to compare information and find out what I want and even order it online. We've gotten to the point where you can order most things online. People aren't going into brick and mortars as frequently. We have apps on our phones to be able to order things so you can can get that coffee, you can get that sandwich, you can get your groceries on an app and or online on a website to be able to get them delivered or to get them dropped in your trunk so you don't have to take as much time going through the store. So in some ways I think we feel like it saves us time too because it allows us to be able to be better stewards of our time. I think sometimes that we're also feeling like there are ways for us to get more organized. And so there are apps that help you organize. There are apps for ADHD. There are apps for sleep. There are apps for tracking. You might be tracking symptoms. You might be tracking cycles. You might be tracking sleep. And so there's a convenient way for you to be able to do that, which is to have it in an app. You know, you always have the app. When we go to see our doctors, a lot of the times they'll have us on an app. When you're talking to your insurance providers, a lot of times that's on the app. Booking reservations, flights, being able to get information. Oftentimes you're chatting with someone in a little box and it's on an app. So there are a lot of benefits to being on social media, to utilizing apps, to being on websites. However, at times what we end up doing is we don't realize that we've expanded to a point where now we don't have the capacity to handle anything else because now we're having some negative consequences as a result of that, and it may be time for us to take a break. So, how do I know when it's time for me to take a break from social media, from apps, from websites, whatever it may be that you're using electronically, even the phone in your hand because you're scrolling or you're checking the outlets to hear what the sports outcome for your favorite team was. What's the score? So if you're mindlessly checking apps, and I think a lot of us, we call it doom scrolling, we will call it mindlessly looking on social media like I'm not even really fully processing what I'm looking at. It's just constantly something going on in the background. So you're not present, you're not mindful, you're not in the moment. It's almost as if you are allowing someone to drive your vehicle and you're just sitting back, though you're in the wheel, you're in the driver's seat and your hands are on the wheel, but it's being automatically piloted. Sometimes because we go numb, because we're checked out, we're disconnected, we're not even recognizing, like, when did I even get on this? Some of us will do it as soon as we get up in the morning, automatic habit. Reach over to turn that alarm off. Next thing you know, on social media, 30 minutes have passed. What has just happened? I don't even know. And I think that that's an indication that we're just too absorbed in what we're looking at, that we have become dependent upon this phone, these apps, this whatever websites that we're checking in order for us to be able to get something. People will say that that's how they end their day. Well, that just puts me to sleep. It definitely doesn't put you to sleep. We absolutely know. The research is very clear that you having your phone, looking at it before you go to bed is not the best way for you to get sleep, and in fact can interfere with your sleep process. However, we have gotten so used to having it, it becomes almost like an emotional support for us to be able to have it. We take it to the bathroom, we take it in the kitchen, we're eating with it, we're in the doctor's office with it, navigating throughout our life. When we're at a stop sign, a stoplight, we're pulling it out so that there's constantly this connection. And that again speaks to that fear of missing out piece, that I might miss something if I'm not connected to it. That we've got those reminders on there, that we've got those notifications on there, and I want to be able to stay on top of things. I think too, it's important for you to really pay attention to how much time you're spending on your phone. Most apps will track the time that you have utilized your phone. Now, it will tell you with that screen time if you're screening your movies, your shows on there, that's going to be added in there as well. But it still is a good indicator of how much time you're spending on that phone. And it adds up. Might be 5 seconds here, might be 10 minutes there, might just because again, anytime I have a little piece of downtime, I'm on it. I'm looking at things, I'm shopping, I'm checking things. And so you can't even go without reading an article, reading like I okay, just email it to me so I can look at it on my phone. And sometimes we're sending things to other people. If you notice that you are a person who is constantly sending reels, you're constantly sending TikToks, you're constantly sending things to people, it's often because you're spending so much time online that now you're having all of this information. So that's another way. Like, how much am I sending to other people? And particularly people have not requested me to send this information to them. I think it's also the comparison behaviors that are a good indication that you're spending too much time on social media. When you are looking at a highlight reel, when you're looking at a Facebook post, when you're looking at you're going back, the progression of relationships, you're going through the timeline, you're deep diving, you've got into, well, let me figure out, and I can go tell what happened. I'll look at their social media page, this social media page, and I'll put the clues together. So now you're becoming a social media sleuth. So that's another one that I think is an indicator that you're on there too much. There are a lot of comparison behaviors that I think come out of looking at social media so much. Now I'm not even really into what the content is as much as I'm comparing how I look versus how this person looks, how they speak, how they dress, how they carry themselves, what kinds of things that they're doing, how it looks like they're living their lives. And we begin to create this persona for this person, and it ends up misrepresenting the who the person is and the type of relationship I have with them and the purpose of their content, because now I've taken it to something else. When you're sending messages to people, you're constantly inboxing people or you're messaging people, and when they don't respond back, why did it take so long for you to respond back to me? Why did I send you all of this and you only sent me back a thumbs up or a heart, or a check that you got the information, but you're not giving me information I'm sending back to you, that you're upset when you're responding under people's posts and they're not replying back to you at all. And so then you end up feeling hurt because now I've created this kind of pseudo relationship with someone who's a social media presence. I think that also speaks to us feeling a little bit insecure when we're looking at social media, when we are examining what people are posting, and then I'm not feeling good about myself. I'm feeling like, hey, I just saw all of these people gave you this feedback and these reactions, and I haven't gotten those kind of reactions, and I'm posting the same kinds of things, but you're getting reactions and I'm not. It also can be like, oh, hey, I see you had this gathering, you did this thing, you invited these other people, you didn't invite me. You're posting pictures of them, but you're not posting pictures of me. You took a picture with me too. Why didn't you post my picture? And so it really gets us into the feeling like we're not enough and we're not worthy. And so if you find yourself having these really negative feelings when you're on social media, that's also an indication that it might be time to take a break. When you start getting irritated, and I think a lot of times when I laugh, and you feel like that grumpy person sitting on the porch, but now the porch is a social media platform, and so you're complaining about this. Why are all these people wearing this? And oh, you young people are this, and then back in my day, this, and I would never tolerate this, and y'all, and you find yourself getting so frustrated and irritated with people. You're rolling your eyes, you sucking your teeth, you yelling at the folks, you sending messages, you getting into these debates with people online over stuff that really doesn't matter and doesn't have anything to do with you. And you feel compelled to explain people to people and get them to see your point. That is definitely, instead of road rage, you're getting social media rage. And so I think it's very important for you to recognize, like, whoa, why am I having such strong reactions to things? Particularly, I don't know these people. This is not my life. This is somebody else's life. And even if I do know them, it doesn't mean that I get a say in how they want to live their lives. And I think sometimes we recognize, like, I'm living more of my life online than I'm living my life actually in person. So instead of me being engaged and present, I'm recording so I can post it, or I'm looking at things while I'm in interactions with people. I've seen the amount of times I have seen people on their phones looking at social media at concerts, at baby showers, at right. So you're actually engaged in a event, and you're leaving that event to go to an online community. That's not real. And I think sometimes when you don't feel like you're an authentic self, that you don't know who you are, that you're confused about who your identity is and what you really like and what you really value and what matters to you, because you've been so caught up in photoshopping and editing and cropping and displaying for people what you think that they want to see, and trying to create this presence of who you want people to believe that you are, that you no longer know who the real you is. then I think that's also an indication. And I will tell you that just when you stop enjoying it, when you're dreading it, when you're sighing and you're finding that you are not getting anything of value, and again, it's part of this mundane, repetitive cycle of I'm just going to do it because I don't have anything else to do. And that's not actually a reason why you ought to be on social media. So we want to be very intentional about our behaviors and what purpose do things serve, because every behavior serves a purpose. So if I'm looking at social media with that kind of disdain, and it's bringing me down, and I leave there feeling mad or sad or insecure or unvalidated or unmotivated, then perhaps it is time for me to take that break. So, what do you get from leaving social media and taking time away? That's exactly what you get. You get your time. Reclaim your time, friends. Reclaim your time. You get an opportunity to recognize how much more productive you are, how much more you can get done, how much more effective you are, how refreshed you feel, how engaged you are, how present you are, your mental capacity, how much better you sleep, your gratitude, your appreciation for the ability to not have to constantly have a dopamine hit and be able to sit with things and feel things and acknowledge things and not necessarily have to have lights and rewards all of the time, where you can just be right? Without an expectation, I think it improves our self worth and our value. It allows you to be able to have the identity of who you are without doing so in order for someone to approve of it. You don't have to get that validation all of the time. I think it improves our mood. I think that we just have less depression and less anxiety when we are unplugged. We tend to find value in things easier. We tend to be able to see different perspectives, and we are actually having to go out and do our own research and read a book and find out some things instead of being so dependent on social media to give you information that may or may not be accurate. Right? It allows you to be able to diversify your interests. It allows you to be able to problem solve better. It allows you to be able to be more of a good steward of your resources. And so instead of you doing the impulse shopping, which sometimes comes along with us being on social media, instead of me trying to purchase likes, if you will, now I'm more intentional about how I'm managing my budget and how I'm spending my resources. And I'm more thoughtful about making a purchase instead of being in that mindset of, as you know, you click on things, they're going to keep bringing them back up and showing you those same things over and over again. So those temptations are there. You're less likely to get back connected with somebody that's a bad fit for you. You're less likely to get involved in a situation where someone is misrepresenting themselves, and you are taking the relationship to be something that it's not. It allows you to be able to work on your social skills. It allows you to be able to fine tune other things that you've been working on, your practice behaviors, because again, that practice becomes our process, because now I'm actually real time doing it instead of spending so much time on social media. It's important for you to be able to examine what your patterns and your habits are. And I will tell people, as you're trying to make some changes in your life about how you use social media, that first, I'm going to tell you, got to take stock. Let me understand what I'm doing. Let me see how much time I'm spending there. And it may be that at first you just set some good parameters, like you just limit your time, that you don't start in your day with social media, that you're intentional about the time that you're going to be on social media, much like we do with our children. Hey, I'm going to give 30 minutes at a part of the day in the morning hours, and maybe 30 minutes at night. If I'm somebody that's working on being an influencer, I'm going to spend a lot of time fine tuning my craft and looking at who I want to be and working on my material, and less time being on there seeing what other people are doing. And maybe that I want to cut back and I don't want to be as tempted to look at other apps. So I may limit it to an app. So I will be focusing on, hey, if I'm going to just be getting the news, if I'm just going to look at, I want to be somebody who's has a social media presence, so I want to have an app, and I may want to look at that. It may be that you take fast, you take breaks. So it may be that I'll take a week off, I'll take a day off, I'll fast for 24 hours, I'll take an opportunity to just be engaged when I'm going on this trip, and I won't post. I will sign off. I will come back later, and I'll be sure to share people what my intentions are, what I'm doing. Hey, for my birthday this year, I'm going to take the whole month off and just be intentional and be present in celebrating my birthday. When I am out to dinner, I'm going to have a rule of I'm not going to be on my phone when I'm out to dinner. If I'm on a date, I'm not going to be on my phone out on a date. I might just want to put on some do not disturb. I might want to turn off those notifications so I'm not constantly getting reminders. I might want to set a timer. I might want to decrease the amount of time that I had last week. Let me cut it down by an hour, or let me cut it in half. I might want to have some parameters in place of the things that I'm going to do instead of being on my phone. And I want to be mindful of how I'm going to feel while I'm doing it. What am I going to do with this free time? How am I going to feel? Is this going to feel like a breakup? Is this going to feel like some grief? What am I doing during this social media routine? During this social media break, I have to get a routine. So that means I need to figure out how I'm going to start my day, how I'm going to end my day, what I'm going to do in the middle. How am I going to get information? What kind of information do I want to seek out? How am I going to protect myself from when other people try to invite me in and they say, hey, well, jump on so you can see this? How am I going to navigate when other people are having celebratory activities and they involve social media? What's going to happen if some of my favorite things that I enjoy are on social media and it's only there? How am I going to be able to navigate that? And I do think it's important for you to have a plan, and this is your plug for therapy. You knew that you were going to get one, that I sit and I talk about what that's going to look like for me. And as I'm being thoughtful and as I'm trying to work on completing things and being more productive, how is social media a help and how is it a hindrance, and what other things can I put in place that may allow me to be more fruitful and allow me to be able to reach those goals, versus how can I limit social media in ways that are no longer taking me away from being able to reach those goals. So I know that for some of you this is completely overwhelming. You're not quite ready for all of this yet, but I do encourage you to begin to have some conversations and really think about how you're utilizing social media. Not only is it if it's the best use of your time, but if also the time that you're spending is time well spent. Okay. All right, y'all, be well. See you in February.